let's go right to 7 destroyers and spend 5 minutes on that really quickly. We could spend 4 days on that. I'm not kidding. Literally 4 days. We're going to do 5 minutes just so you have a snapshot of it. So the 7 destroyers of self-mastery, which will go on the screen in a moment, the 7 destroyers of self-mastery are as follows. If you are not connected to your why, something higher, then you're not going to do the things. So my initial why, and I don't mean mentally, I mean in your nervous system. My initial why was to not be blind, broken, alcoholic, to have my children be able to enjoy and have a house on Long Beach Island that we would go to as a center of our universe, a sacred heart and soul of our planet, primary residence, to be able to go on vacation anywhere I wanted to go, ski trips, scuba trips, anywhere I wanted to go, and stay oceanfront or mountainside. That was what I had to be an example of possibility for my 3 children, period. It wasn't bigger than that. This is what I wrote down in 1997. I had the beach house 2 years later. I'll be going there this weekend. I now have 2 beach houses right across, have people flying in from all over the country to have stuff, and my kids use them all the time. They're now 23, 21, 19, and my 2-year-old daughter, yes, magic formula. We'll talk about that later, right? And so with all those beautiful things, the why drove me. I am here today, and I work 16 to 18 hours a day now. I spent a lot of my legal career working 4 hours a week, coaching all my kids' games, all those 1,000 games, because I created enough business, and I'll come back to that in a second, why business development does create the time freedom Tracy mentioned. I'll say it right now, actually, because most people don't want to do business development. So if you're the person who does the business development, you can create ultimate time freedom. If you create the business development, build an incredible relationship with the client, or clients, definitely clients, plural, you change your entire life. How did I do this fun little thing we talked about earlier, just to make sure we don't think it's crazy? Here's what I did to build the first law firm. I went out and I realized we'll do through the 7 layers, still on the 7 destroyers, but I'm going to go back and forth between them to lock it into your nervous system, move, boom, 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 keep disrupting patterns. Here's what I did. Very simply, I realized that networking, and please, I'm not correcting anyone how I use networking, that random networking certainly can produce things. It certainly can produce things. But I have a rule of thumb I created when I was 2 years out of law school. I created this rule of thumb from Robert Anthony, How to Make a Fortune from Public Speaking, a book I bought for $1. I create a rule. If I ain't speaking, I ain't going. That was my rule. If I'm not speaking, I'm not going. That became my rule. Once you create a standard, everything changes, because there's a huge differential when we're in the audience or at the table versus on the stage. Huge. Come back to that in the process mastery component. If I ain't speaking, I ain't going. Right? And my team's like, yeah, but you know who's going to be there? I'm like, I love you. I don't care. Like, I wasn't doing that 2 years out of law school. I'm not going somewhere if I'm not speaking now. And I don't want you going if you're not speaking. Rule of thumb. Come back to it. Right? Now, other than a firm event, because then you're speaking, you got a beautiful event coming up in June, I'd be loading up on bringing relationships to that. I'll come back to what that means in a second. Okay? But your why drives you. My current why, of why I'm working more than I ever have, is I want to cause leaders to cause leaders to cause leaders. I don't cause followership. I don't cause leaders to cause leaders. I want to cause the leaders in this room to cause leaders to cause leaders, to merge ecosystems, to come together with people for 1 + 1 = 1 trillion relationships. That sounds hyperbolic, or at least more than 10 and certainly more than 3, meaning 1 + 1 = a lot more than 2, to make the world an even greater place by unblinding people to the formula of formulas that controls their money, time, and magic. To bring truth forward. My uncle was a retina surgeon. He went back to school much later in life, tried to cure the eye disease we have, tragically killed in a car accident. Actually, 25th anniversary of that event was just on Monday. 25 years ago, my uncle was killed in a car accident. My uncle saved lives, thousands of people, unbelievable. I mean, saved people's physical lives, physical sight. I can't think of anything more valuable, more important than this conversation. I would rather be blind physically than sighted and not know what I know. If somebody said today, you can have your sight restored. I can't see anything in front of me. I cannot see anything. Just a tiny bit of peripheral, so I keep moving back and forth. Now I know that Tracy's here, Helen's there, so I have a couple anchors, like spots in the room, right? I could tell that that's it. That's probably a chair, like, because I can understand the chairs are white in the room, there's contrast with the carpet, but only peripherally. I would not take my sight back and lose the knowledge and mastery I've created. Because my ability to impact lives is completely different. And I prefer that over my own personal sight. Now, I'm not telling you should think that, But that's 100% of what I believe and feel in my heart. Like if, the universe came to me and said, you can be sighted tomorrow and forget everything you know, no way. No thanks. I'll go this way. Because my outcome, my why now is to serve and support people and free them. My uncle was driven to save sight. I want to save people's lives. And I don't mean in a trauma center like physical death, but lives of quiet desperation, of pain, of suffering, of just mediocrity in comparison to people who knows in their heart and soul. And I don't want to tell people to want something different, but I believe that everyone yearns for more. Everyone yearns for more, and they don't do anything because they don't know how. And if they know how, they don't think they can for some reason. It's a lie, but it's very normal and understandable because our survival brain tells us that. Our survival brain wasn't created to help us thrive. Our survival brain was so we conserve resources. If you swim up to a shark, and I swim up to a lot of sharks, no joke. I get bumped by sharks in the ocean surfing. That's happened to me on Long Beach Island even. I've been in water with 100 sharks. If you go to a shark that could eat me easily, and you approach even a great white shark, and you're out of a cage and you swim towards the shark, you know what the shark does? It swims away. The first time I went shark diving, I was in shock that I couldn't get a good picture of a shark. When I was sighted, I was 27 years old, and I was like swimming, like trying to get in front of the sharks, and they kept veering off in all these different directions because they're trained to take the lowest hanging fruit only. They're trained to survive. They're not trained to thrive. And that's the difference between human beings and creatures that are not human beings, is that we have the capacity to break free from that. And everyone and everything I did told me it couldn't happen. Everything. They told me I couldn't make the high school baseball team and play varsity. They told me I couldn't play baseball at Columbia. They told me I wouldn't start at Columbia. Then they told me I wouldn't be captain at Columbia. They told me because I had a 2.9 at Columbia, I'd never graduate law school with honors. I graduated with a 3.8. Not because I was so smart, because I learned how to model same stuff, process, influence, and self-mastery. They told me that I would never get a job at a top Jersey firm. I did. They told me I was completely crazy and offered me psychological counseling at the original law firm I came from. I'm not joking. When I quit my job, they offered me psychological counseling saying I had an adjustment disorder, and I was crazy to leave. I am not kidding. The managing partner of the firm actually said that. I left. I started. Everybody told me I could never build it. I told my dad, I'm going to go become counsel to the New Jersey Chiropractic Society. I'm going to go make that happen. I'm going to help doctors recover money for the medical receivables. It's going to be a great gateway in. And then we're going to help them do transactions, litigation. We're going to represent them in everything they do. My father said, if it's that easy, why doesn't everybody do it? 17th thing in my life. We were counseled to the NJ Chiropractic Society a year later. And the firm I originally sold, my first firm, the person I sold it to is still counseled to the Chiropractic Society and has fed his family for 2 decades and learned nothing from this formula because he didn't learn that that's transferable. So my second firm, we did work with every association and society. Neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, all sorts of different people. And I realized that everything is the same. Everything is the same. And once you're able to train people on information that's valuable, you create a sustainable, lifelong relationship. And you love them, and you tell them the truth. But our why has to be embedded inside of us to drive us forward through 3 phases that destroy everything. People do not make this journey. 1, arduous, where you put in a ton more effort and get a very little result, right? Arduous, get a very little result. Law school is an arduous process. But then it moved into momentum, where we started to, by maybe 2nd, 3rd year with our studying, we started to put in less work and get a bigger return. And then abundance from the law school investment to have a position like you have here, right? Arduous, momentum, abundance. Same thing with walking. Same thing with running. Same thing with every human, every actual animal kingdom creature, everything goes through those 3 cycles: arduous, momentum, abundance. Human beings quit and stay stuck in arduous at some point in their life. At some point. Every human being does. Eventually, we stop going through that cycle and making it to a different level. Some people do that at 15. Some people do it at the end of college. Some people do it at the end of law school. Some people do it after they're done being an associate and make partner. Some people do it when they're a partner and they make it to a certain point. Some people do it when they start raising money philanthropically, creating impact. But everyone stops at one point, And if everybody didn't, then we'd have clean water, we'd have clean food, which probably with AI we're eventually going to have, I hope, or the world will end. I don't know. We'll see, right? One way or the other. But that's what happened. The why, if that's out of whack, we never make it from arduous to abundance at anything. And the conversation we're having is how do you make it from arduous to abundance in your business development 7 levers, which I'll show in a second, right? Then we have the second destroyer, of course, which is what identities do you have for yourself, right? So I'm sorry, the first destroyer is our physiology, I'll come back to that. The second destroyer is our why. Our third is our identities. Who are you? First question I asked you today. Who are you as an attorney? Who are you as a human being? Who are you as a marketer? Who are you as a leader? These are all choices. These aren't genetic. These are choices. And whoever you are as a leader today can be something very different 3 months from today. In 3 years, whoever you are as a marketer today could be unbelievably different, literally by next week. Who is a marketer 1 year from now? I traveled this journey. I've seen tons of people who've traveled this journey. So your identities are controlling what you do and don't do. And then, of course, we go through other very fine realities like what are your belief structures about all these things. And the key question there is, do your belief structures serve you? So if you believe that developing business is actually hard and not worth it, of course you're not going to do it. If you believe it's hard in the first place, of course you're not. If you believe that, well, somebody told me to network and I've been networking, and eventually it's going to pay off and only networking, I promise it won't. But if that's your belief, it's going to control your behavior. So these are the things that control your behavior. And of course, the fear of rejection and failure at 5-6 are catastrophic. Rejection does not exist. That's an hour unpacking, I'm saying in a second, but rejection does not exist. What if you believed that rejection literally is a self-creation and the only person that can reject you is you? And then, of course, what if you believe that failure absolutely exists, but instead of thinking of failure in the micro level, what's right before you, what if it was what you were going to be experiencing on your deathbed? That will change your behavior today. If you actually condition that into your nervous system, that takes more than a minute. But once that's in your nervous system, then you can get up and work 16 hours a day, going from arduous to momentum to abundance in anything, and go through beautiful cyclical periods of your life of impact if you actually use failure differently. And then finally, over-chunking, absolute catastrophic nightmare to over-chunk, because the things I'm saying sound complicated, but really it's just 3 things. Where's your process mastery? Where's your influence mastery? Where's your self-mastery? You get yourself to 9.9, all 3 of those categories, you literally